I think too many businesses just focus on that top line and get all, intoxicated by their gross revenue. It's like, yeah, that's a nice number. It's like sometimes they call it like a vanity number. But what really pays the bills and is the reason the business exists is that bottom line.
I'm Candace Rodarty. This is Gratitude Geek, the podcast for women who weave gratitude into your business strategy. I am super excited to learn from and share the wisdom of Ral West today because she helps operators become owners of their business. Welcome, Ral.
Thank you, Candace.
I have been a business owner for 30 years. I grew a very successful 6-figure custom furniture business with my husband. We are in a new season of our life. And so things are different now. I want to learn from you, but I also understand that I'm not coming at this from as a newbie perspective. I'm just coming at this as a different perspective.
Right. Oh,
Right.
I get that. I'm in, a different season of my life as well. This business of mine, I don't have to do. I'm doing it because it's a passion, and I'm trying to give back. So I've been an entrepreneur for 45 years, and I've learned a few things along the way. So it's time for me to share that with others.
So tell the audience what you want them to know about you.
Okay. Well, I live in Alaska. That's one very interesting thing, but we don't spend a lot of time here because we travel a lot. And we've had a second home on Maui for 26, almost 27 years, but we're in the process of trying to sell because our life is changing. We are going to be spending more time visiting our grandchildren instead of, just hunkering down on Maui. And we have a new grandbaby coming in Arizona. So Arizona might be where we spend more time in the winter. But beyond that, I've spent 45 years building businesses. We grew one business for 25 years and sold it to Alaska Airlines. And way back when, 40 years ago, I was, up to my eyeballs in the weeds of the daily operation of the business. And it was not a happy place because I was exhausted. I was overwhelmed. We had, one of our daughters was in grade school, and poor thing had to come to the office to, spend her after school and evening hours, and we would eat junk food for dinner at the office. And this was not a healthy lifestyle. So I set about learning how to do it differently. So I had mentors. I took courses. I went to college. I studied with people like Robert Kiyosaki, and I gradually learned how to build this business in a different way and build it so that we could still have a life.
So you sold your business to Alaska Airlines. A few years ago, I interviewed a woman who sold her business to Bill Gates. So I find it really interesting when I meet women who have sold their businesses to these major corporations, because this happens a lot. A lot of times they pick up competition or they pick up new innovation that they want to add, and it's just easier to incorporate somebody else's innovation into their business. So what were you an innovation or a competition?
Competition. So we operated the air service between Alaska and Hawaii. We were flying wide-body jets. They were charters. So we were a scheduled charter airline. And Alaska Airlines was planning to enter the Hawaii market. And we knew it would only be a matter of time before they started flying from Alaska to Hawaii. So we approached them because we realized that for them to win the market, we would all lose money. We would be cutting our fares, have a fare war, and the public wins with these low fares, but the businesses would not. So it took a couple of years, but we, got them to agree to buy us rather than have us compete. And, we felt that their pockets were probably deeper than ours, so they'd probably outlast us.
So that explains why you spend half your time in Alaska and half your time in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You just didn't give that up.
No, that was, one of our passions was being in Maui. But like I said, times change, and now, we're going to spend more time elsewhere. But we got ourselves out of the day-to-day operation several years before we sold. We were not running the company. We had managers and a team that ran the business for us.
This is on topic, but off topic. I recently saw a map of Hawaii superimposed on the United States, and it took up from all of Texas to California. Hawaii is that big. And my husband made a snarky comment about, well, it's mostly water. And I said, we lived in Texas. You know that the concentration is in the cities, that there's not much outside of the cities. So there isn't much difference between water and empty land, right? So in terms of the amount of space the island takes up, it takes up the equivalent of the whole Southwest of the United
Mm.
States.
Yeah, well,
So it's a
they're
big
spread out.
market. It's a very big market.
Well, they're spread out, yeah, but, so mostly it was Alaskans going to Hawaii, especially in the wintertime, but
Yeah.
year-round, and in the summer, we'd have Hawaiians come to Alaska, who love to fish. Yeah,
Mm.
so we had traffic going both ways, but Hawaii is the favorite vacation destination for Alaskans still, and
Really?
yeah, it's actually one of the closest places for us. I mean, with the nonstop flights from Anchorage to Honolulu that we were running, it's 5.5 hours from Anchorage to Honolulu. And that's the same as from Seattle to Honolulu or San Francisco or Los Angeles. So
Hmm.
it was very easy to just get on a plane in Anchorage and, boom, we would run ads that say 0 to 80 in 5.5 hours. It's,
Oh, that's a great ad. I love that.
yeah,
And sorry, flat earthers, there's your proof that the world is not flat.
yeah. Nope.
Oh,
Nope.
how funny.
So, yeah. So, it was a wonderful business. It was a very happy business, and it was sad to see it go. But you know, we had to be aware of what the trends were. You can't operate a business in a vacuum. So you have to keep your eye on what's happening around you. And so we knew that it was time to pivot, and so that's what we did.
Before we move on, I would love to hear how you incorporate gratitude into your business strategy.
Oh, well, gratitude is very important to me personally. I start every day and end every day with, a little gratitude. You could call it a gratitude prayer, or I just kind of list in my mind so many of the things that I'm grateful for. And I think bringing that into your business, it's a mindset that, we have so much to be thankful for. And look at life and your business with the cup half full um, outlook rather than that cup half empty. And in fact, I just read a book the other day called The Gap and the Gain by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. And it's talking about if people are always comparing themselves to what they want in the future, they're always going to live in the gap. It's like, oh, I'm not doing what I want to be doing. I'm not there yet. Whereas if you live in the gain, which is look how much I have, look how much I've accomplished, look how much I've learned, your attitude and your whole perspective on life is so much better. So I try to live in the gain, not the gap. And you take that attitude into your business. And, for one thing, be grateful for your team. Show your gratitude to your team, show your gratitude to your customers. That's one of the principles that I teach is, customer service. We need to make our customers number one and focus on delighting our customers and be grateful for them. Because you know what? If we didn't have customers, we wouldn't have a business. It's as simple as that.
Gratitude Geek Lab members, I'm putting The Gap and the Gain on our reading list for book club. So if you want to read that along with us, join us in the lab. Links
Yeah.
in the show notes. The women listening to the show, they're 40 and above, and something super crappy has happened to them. Like their spouse passed away, they've had cancer, they
Hmm.
got divorced, their business failed,
Hmm.
and they don't have the I just sold an airline business to Alaska Airlines kind of money. You know,
Hmm.
they're struggling. They're really thinking. So how does somebody at that level move from operator to owner in their business?
Well, it's the same principles, whether it's a tiny business or just starting out or whether it's an up and running business. And one thing I just want to segue here to say that if you've had a tragedy like that and your life is not happy right now, it's even more important to think about the gain. How can that be turned into a benefit for you? How can
Mhm.
you look at the blessing? If you've lost someone that you loved, spend time thinking about what they gave to you when they were part of your life instead of, I mean, obviously you're going to grieve, but try to move from a place of gratitude and having had this benefit in your life rather than dwelling on the loss. And that will help, I think. But getting back to your business question, um, the principles involve setting up systems, having a team. Even if you're a solopreneur, you still have a team. You're going to have a bookkeeper. You're going to have, you know, uh, mentors. You're going to have hopefully an assistant, a VA or something. And so you create this team and you move forward, one step at a time. If you don't have a lot of money, more of it's going to fall on your shoulders to begin with, but you can still use leverage. That's one of my principles. And you need to, use automation. And automation is really cheap these days. And, back 40 years ago when I was starting, automation was expensive and it was hard to find. So we had to pay well over 6 digits to develop an online reservation system for our business, for example. But nowadays you can get AI to help you do a lot of things like that.
Mhm.
So it's not as difficult to start a business with, bootstrapping as it was back then. Um, and I think that there are so many needs out there. So the main thing is to figure out where there's a pain point that you can help somebody with and find out if there's a market for what you can offer and then be very clear about what value you provide and put yourself out there and don't hold back. I think women oftentimes are guilty of just holding back too much and letting what society says and oh women can't do this or do that. Well, that's baloney. We can do anything we want to do. So don't let those naysayers hold you back and get a grip on your confidence and your faith and move forward and take action because action is going to be rewarded.
So you just talked about something that Alan Dibb talked about when he was a guest on the show. He talked about identifying the pain point. And he talks about that start with why is not the way that you should start your business. It's start with who, like who you're going to help. Who Not How is another one of those books that people read,
Well,
you know. It,
Hardy and
it,
Sullivan again.
yeah, is it Hardy and who is that? Who wrote that? Okay,
Yeah,
I have read that. Just
yeah.
didn't remember it was them. If there is a pain point that you can solve and you have passion for solving that pain point, I think that is where the first step is. Because if you don't have a passion for what you're doing, why are you doing it at age 40 and above?
Well, and I agree with that, but I also think the why is important for you. You have to have your own why. Why am I doing this? What is it that I'm going to be getting out of this? Because if you don't have that passion, that why, that motivation, I don't think that you'll have the energy and the motivation to start it and to keep at it. And, building a business takes a long time sometimes to, especially if you're doing this like personal branding and so forth, it takes a while to get out there and to become noticed because it's a pretty noisy marketplace right now. So you've got to have that why to keep you going. So when things get discouraging, you still have that why that's going to make you get up the next day and go for it again. So that's important. And yes, you need to identify your target market. You need to know who you're serving and what is it that they need. What do they want? What do they need? And how can you provide that to them? And, are they willing to pay for it? So,
Hmm.
there might be something that somebody wants, but yeah, I'm not going to pay for it. Well, that's not going to help you build your business very much.
You identified a need for Alaskans. They wanted to go to Hawaii. They didn't want to go to the Mariana Islands. They didn't want to go to American Samoa. They didn't want to go to Guam. They wanted to go to Hawaii. So if you had started an airline going to the Mariana Islands, you probably wouldn't have been as successful.
Yeah, I think you got that right.
So how do you determine what your target market wants that you can provide with passion?
Well, I think you have to do some research. You have to do some homework, and you can test it. For us, it was easy because we knew that, everybody goes to Hawaii from Alaska. And the business actually started with my husband being basically a rental agent for Alaskans who own condos in Hawaii. And so he would, book the condos for them, bring them the visitors, and he'd get a commission. But then I was in the travel business, and some of my clients were Hawaii hotel companies and rental car companies and an inter island airline. So I said, well, why don't you package the condos with the inter island air and the rental cars? And then you've got a vacation to Hawaii, and the company became known as Hawaiian Vacations. So, then we added the way to get them to Hawaii. So we started buying tickets on the air carriers who were flying between Alaska and Hawaii. And then those carriers pulled out of the market, and we didn't have a way to get our people to Hawaii. So now you've got this bunch of customers and no way to provide your product to them. That was a problem. We almost lost the company at that point. Like we very seriously considered shutting it down. But it was like, no, Alaskans really need this way to get to Hawaii. We saw the demand. So we said, we're going to figure it out. We'll find a way. And that led my husband to finding an airplane that we could charter. And so we started off with just a summertime charter, like it was once a week or every 5 days or something like that. And it was a huge risk because we had to pay for the entire season and all the seats, whether we sold any or not. And, that's so sometimes entrepreneurs starting off, you may have to make a big risk.
Mhm.
And what we did was we analyzed the numbers. We saw how many number of seats were in this summertime charter series, and then we looked at our past records to how many tickets had we sold between to Hawaii in previous summers, and we saw that we've already produced that much volume in the past. So yes, we can fill this charter. So do the research, get some data, and then you can make your decision to go forward.
This is a very similar origin story to Virgin Airlines. Do you know the origin story to Virgin Airlines?
No, I actually don't.
Richard Branson is on some island somewhere, and his flight was canceled. And so he chartered a plane, and then he sold seats on the plane, and that was his first chartered flight. And
Oh,
then he started the
sure.
airline from that idea. So basically, it's what you did. You saw a need, you chartered a flight, and then you filled the seats.
Yeah. And then we went on from there because that was successful. We kept chartering more and more and more and ended up carrying 35,000 passengers a year between Alaska and Hawaii.
There are
So
that many people in Alaska?
there's about
I'm
750,000
just
people.
kidding.
We didn't get all of them. There are still some people in Alaska who've never been to Hawaii. We could look at that gap and say, oh, we failed. We didn't take everybody
No, but they don't want to go to Alaska. I mean,
to
they don't
Hawaii.
want to go to Hawaii. They want
Nah,
to
I
go
don't.
someplace else,
I don't understand that, but I guess. So
For most of us who live in the lower 48, the idea of living in a state that is dark for like 3 months out of the year is not appealing to many of us, right? But it's appealing to the 850,000 people who live there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everybody has their own thing
Right.
that they enjoy.
Well, and a little bit of education about Alaska.
Oh, thank you.
Not all of Alaska is that dark. Because where I live in Sitka, we're way down in southeast Alaska, closer to Seattle than to Anchorage. We're just a little bit darker in the winter than Seattle and a little bit lighter than Seattle in the summer. Maybe an hour of daylight difference, or still, I haven't really checked that exactly, but
So it's not,
it's
what's the population of a Sitka? You know?
8,500.
And it's that little
Right.
tiny sliver of land that should
Yeah.
be Canada, but isn't.
Right. Except that we're actually not even on that part of the land. We're west of that. We're on Baranof Island, which is one of the 10 largest islands in America. And we are right on the Pacific Ocean. But
Beautiful.
yes, tiny town, but we
But I
are
bet it's worth it.
closer to Seattle than to Anchorage. Yeah. But it's not that dark comparatively to further north.
I think geography is so fascinating. When my husband and I were on a trip, we were driving, we were on a road trip, we were driving in Utah. and the road was straight. It was just a straight road. And it literally looked like the road was going to drive through the mountain in front of us. Like we didn't see any way that we were not going to run into this mountain. And then at the last minute, we curved, but we couldn't see the curve from 20 miles away. All we could see for 20 miles was there's a mountain right there, and there's nothing in between us and the
Ooh,
mountain.
seems like a metaphor, some kind of a lesson in that, I think.
There is a lesson in that.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Come up with it. Let's come up with the lesson, the metaphor.
Yeah. Well, things may seem really tough, but you keep going, and then it might be easier than you thought.
And the other lesson there is somebody laid the path before you.
Well,
You don't have to forge your own path. You can follow the path somebody else took.
yeah, and one of my little mottos is there's no such thing as a dead end. So you may have thought you were at a dead end, but it wasn't.
No. No, there's always a way to get around it, under it, over it.
That's what I said back when we decided to not close the business and find another way. I just said, we're gonna find a way. There's a way.
Let's talk about that, because that is something that all of us, like when in 2008, that happened to my husband and I with our business. We were doing really, really well, and 2008 happened, which it was an economic downturn,
Yeah.
and we pivoted. We actually fired customers. We downsized our staff. We raised our prices exponentially, and we started targeting a whole new demographic.
Wow.
Because if we wanted to survive, we knew that we couldn't keep doing it the way we had done it before. And we did. We had one of our best profit years ever in 2009. Profit versus income and profit are not the same thing. It was the best profit
Correct.
years.
That's an important lesson.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Profit and income are not the same thing.
Well, for one thing, I just love what you just said. That was one of my first lessons as a young entrepreneur. I was looking at my gross revenue, but yet I didn't have enough money to pay the bills, and so I actually hired a consultant to help me. It's like I kind of need to learn how to make money, and she looked at all my financials and she says, "No, you're making money. Look at your gross revenue. You're just not making enough profit. You need to focus on the profit." So, you have to turn your attention to what you really want. And I think too many businesses just focus on that top line and get all, intoxicated by their gross revenue. It's like, yeah, that's a nice number. It's like sometimes they call it like a vanity number.
hmm
But what really pays the bills and is the reason the business exists is that bottom line.
hmm
Pay attention there.
If you have $1 trillion business and your expenses are $1,001,001, you have a net $1 business.
Yeah. Sad, but true. Yeah. But, no, there were airlines in Alaska, back in the '80s, and so, where they were their motto was, "Well, we're gonna lose money on every seat, but we'll make it up in volume." Like,
No, that doesn't work,
how does
because
that
you
work?
don't that doesn't work.
No, and you know what? They went out of business.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody's not mathing correctly there.
Yeah, right, you did yeah, I know one of my little mottos too is like, "Do the math." You always have to just do the math.
Let's talk about moving from operator to owner.
Yes.
What is an operator versus an owner?
Okay, the operator is someone who, um most of the day-to-day activities, decisions, troubleshooting, all of that falls on the operator. They're up to their elbows or eyeballs in the daily operation of the business. They're the kind of people who say, "I can't be gone for a week or 2 weeks or the business will fall apart." And, I can't delegate. I have to do it myself. And they are limiting their growth with their own capacity. They can't grow beyond the number of hours that they can put in a day. And the owner, on the other hand, is able to delegate, sets up systems, creates a team where the team has the empowerment and the authority to do and knows how to do what needs to be done. And the owner can sit back and be like, I call it like being the orchestra leader. You don't have to play all the instruments. You just have to lead the orchestra. So the owner is more of that orchestra leader, The operator is one who's trying to play all the instruments and keep that tune going. You know? So, it doesn't work for long to be the operator because you're going to wear yourself out. And then what happens to the business? Or you get sick. Then where are you? Because everything falls apart, falls down because you have to be there because you're the one that makes those key decisions or has to sign all the checks or whatever it is. So you have to be able to step back, look at your business from a 10,000-foot viewpoint and see where it's going, be the one to set the course for the business, have your vision, your values, your principles guiding the business, and make sure that everybody in your team knows exactly what you need to have done and maybe not prescribed in detail how to do it, but just make sure that those objectives are met and then have some trust that your team will be able to carry that out. And if you've done a good job of creating alignment and spelling out your vision and your goals, your team should be able to support that. And we found that to be true. We had a fabulous team, but we empowered them.
So the word the word that you use, system, is what the solopreneur who's listening to the show needs to hear.
I went to a seminar last year and learned something really cool that I have the ability to say, I don't do that anymore. You have to have a certain mindset to
Yes.
be able to let someone else do it.
Let's double down on system talk because
Yes,
that's really the lesson here for the solopreneur.
yes, it is. And say that you are doing something yourself. You start by sort of documenting what it is that you need to do to get this task done. What are the steps that you take? And so a lot of systems I know a lot of consultants get really carried away with, big fancy systems. And, to me, a system can be as simple as, my little process for remembering everybody's birthday, and I have a system for that. It's not very
I
complicated.
have an automation for that.
Yeah. Well, I use an app for that too. But, it doesn't have to be really complex. You can have a system for where you put your car keys every time you come into the house or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that can
And
be
that is really what a system is. If you always leave your car keys in the same spot when you come home, you always know where to find them the next day.
yeah,
That is a system. It's
it
a
is.
one-step system, but it is a system.
But, if you just look at it at its simplest foundation like that, then the concept of, oh, I have to systematize my business, it's not so overwhelming. Say that your task is to pay the bills. Okay, what do you need to do in order to pay the bills? You've got the invoice. Maybe you check it to make sure it's correct. Are you going to write a check, or are you going to use an automated bill paying system so that you don't have to actually write checks? Do something like blocking time so that you're only paying bills, once a week or once a month or whatever it is. So that system, you document it, you just write it down or film a little video, Vimeo or whatever one of those video filming things is, so that you've got a record of how you do that. So that if you're not there sometime, somebody else can do it for you.
Mhm.
So one of the things that really taught us the most about creating systems was reading the book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And he talked about how McDonald's systematized their business down to the number of seconds each hamburger was on the grill at what temperature. First side on the grill, so many seconds. Flip it, it's on the grill, so many seconds. And, this was documented and systematized in such a way that the hamburger, made in Buffalo is going to be exactly the same as the hamburger made in Budapest.
Mhm.
That is systematizing your business.
Yeah.
So
And at this
setting
point,
up,
it's so automated that the machine probably dings as soon as it knows you flipped the burger.
yeah, well, they might have a machine that flips some burger for them. I don't
Yeah.
know. But
Yeah.
anyway, the point is that you document enough so that you can duplicate yourself, so that anyone coming into your business can be taught how to do it. If you have an assistant, your assistant needs to be able to do things the way you do them. So you're duplicating yourself because now your assistant is doing X, Y, and Z task. but that's how you go about it. So in the beginning, in our business, we didn't have all these systems documented because my husband and I were doing a lot. But then we started. You just have to take the first step and start by documenting, how do you take a reservation, and how do and then we had a team at that point, and then we could say, okay, we need you to document what you're doing so that a reservation agent documents everything that they do, and then we can hire a new reservation agent, and that reservation agent, the new one, can look at the manual and figure out how to do the job.
Yeah.
And then we grew beyond that to doing a 2-week training for new reservations agents. That's a further down the
Yeah.
road.
Well,
But
the more you train them, the more they understand how to do the job, and the more empowered and they are, and they have agency to actually do the work
yes,
without having to second guess everything they're doing.
and that's the key, is that you have to set up systems to be able to do the training, and then make sure your training is very thorough, because as you just said, the more they know, the more you can trust that, oh, okay, they know how to do this. I don't have to hang over their shoulder and watch
Mhm.
everything that they're doing. So that it takes an investment of time to do that. It takes an investment of time to write down your processes or record your processes. But once you've done it, you know, now more time is freed up in the future. I just
Mhm.
had one of my clients uh, decide to automate a particular process in her business, something that took her, an hour or two to do every time she did it. Well, she invested some time. Maybe it was 2 or 3 hours invested time to automate that thing. Now she's able to do it in like 30 minutes.
Mhm.
So every time she does that, she has just saved herself, an hour. And
Mhm.
those hours build up. So not long at all before you've recouped your initial investment of
Yeah.
time. And now
Uh,
you've,
that's
you,
actually a pretty good return on investment if she spent 3 hours setting up the system and now it takes half an hour. She got her ROI back in 2 or 3 times.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, amazing. And now she's going, now I've got more time. So, okay, now what can you use that time for? You can use that time to go find another client, you know?
So let's talk about some ideas for solopreneur systems that you can put in place. One of them is onboarding new clients.
Bill paying and bookkeeping can be systematized easily. There's so much automation out there. I can't imagine anybody actually handwriting a check anymore. I don't order checks anymore. Why? Why do that? It has to be automated. So there's very easy and inexpensive automations available for so many things. Um, for example, email inboxes. I was, maybe about a year ago or so, I was probably spending an hour a day just sorting through these emails, and so many of them were like junk, or I don't need to look at that now. I can do that later. And I found somebody who could set me up with an AI email sorting system. And now I just take a few minutes here and there, and I've gone through all my emails. So I'm saving probably, a half hour, an hour a day, because I have this simple little AI tool that cost me like less than $200 to
Wow.
implement. And that includes the time that I paid the consultant to do it.
Wow.
So
I actually know someone who does that work. Her
yeah,
business is called the Inbox Chick, and she will set up automations for your inboxes for you. So,
fantastic. Fantastic. So, so that's just one way.
yeah.
Another thing is, your own productivity, keeping track of your own tasks. So I have an app that I started using over 10 years ago, and I'm still using it. And I know that there's tons of other newer apps out there, but I also know that this one works, and the company keeps upgrading and updating their app. So why change? Because I have thousands of tasks in this one app to to take the effort to move it to a new app, which may or may not be better. Yeah, it's not worth it. So, but
Yeah, if the system is working for you, why change it?
yeah, and find an app that works for you.
Mhm.
Everybody's a little bit different, and some people say, "Well, I like this app," but no, somebody else likes that app. Oh, fine, just try a couple out and see which one works best. But by all means, don't just rely on a written little to-do list, or putting things on your calendar or something. No, you need something that can really help you guide your own productivity, keep track of your tasks, keep track of what you've delegated so that you know to follow up on it, and keep track of the things that happen once a year or the things that happen once a month. An app can do your reminders for you so that you don't have to keep it in your head because I'm maybe like a lot of people, my head's full and I can't keep too much more in it. My hard drive needs a reboot or something. You know?
I I told my husband yesterday that I didn't have enough bandwidth to do some project that I was thinking about doing. I said, "I had this great idea for a project to work on, and then I realized I didn't have the bandwidth to do it." He's all,
Yeah,
"You need more computer memory?"
yeah,
And
yeah,
I went, "No, I'm talking about my personal bandwidth."
yeah. Well, there's that, and there's the memory. I think the older we get, and I'm a lot older than a lot of people, so my hard drive is kind of full. No, I have
The
to
nice thing is
remember.
that you can, refresh the cache. So,
Yeah, yeah.
this morning, I belong to a community of women podcasters, and we have a little Slack channel that we ask questions of each other. We support each other in this little Slack channel. And one
Mhm.
of the members asked what we all use for our scheduling tool.
Mm.
And the last time I checked, there were 6 people who had responded, and there were 6 different tools mentioned. And she actually ended up using a spreadsheet, a Google spreadsheet that was integrated with a scheduling tool. So when you're a podcast host, one of the things that you do to make your life simpler is you create an intake form. And the intake form then leads to the scheduling app. So my workflow is somebody pitches me, I like them. I like the pitch. I give them my intake form. They fill out the intake form. They schedule on my calendar, right? And then I can go back and look at the intake form and say yes or no, and cancel the appointment and say sorry, you're not a good fit. Or I can keep it as is and give them the link to the recording software. The person in the group was specifically looking for that workflow for herself, but she didn't want to spend money on it because she's at the very beginning stages of her podcast. So it was really interesting to see the answers and the solution she came up with, which was a Google form. But
Yeah.
what the whole reason why I'm sharing that is because, like Ralph said just a second ago, there's no one system that's best for everybody. There's the
Mhm.
system that's best for you. So use
Right.
the system that's best for you.
Yeah. Yeah. But do have a system and
Yeah.
do use some automation. Yeah, it's just too easy to get automation to do things for you these days.
You can automate so many things. There's this whole vibe coding trend going on right now where you use AI to write code for you for your websites or whatever you want to use them for. You give the AI some instructions and the AI shoots out some code for you that you can implement somewhere, right?
Cool.
This whole vibe coding thing. So
Cool.
the way that things are going to go in the future, creating that system is going to be as easy as going into your favorite AI and saying, "Hi, this is what I want to create. Can you tell me how to do it?" And it'll pop out the code and you'll have it to embed on your website immediately. That's where
Well,
it's going. It's not, I don't think it's there yet, but we're getting there. We're
well, I
getting
will
there.
say too that anyone who has not yet started using AI, you are behind. You need to get with it. Jump on the bandwagon, whether it's Chat GPT or Claude or whatever you use. Um, Use it because it's a tool. It's not going to replace us. I know so many people are saying, "Oh, AI it's scary, it's dangerous." It's like, no, it's just like, yeah, maybe the microwave oven was scary when it first came out, but it's
Yeah.
here to stay, and AI is here to stay. So might as well use it to your advantage. Use it as a form of leverage. We use it. My team and I use it to help us create our content. And it's not AI creating the content, it's AI taking my content. I wrote an online course, and so I have all of this that I created, feed it into AI, and then say, okay, pull from my content something that addresses, XYZ topic.
Hmm.
And then it just speeds it up,
Yep.
but it's still from me.
Hmm. I repurpose my podcast episodes. I've got 300 and I think you're like 312 or 313. That's what episodes you are. I'm not sure. It'll be in the show notes, y'all, which episode this is. But with all those episodes, I felt like I had all this content that I wasn't getting used. And so I use AI to find themes and I repurpose based on themes. So 7 podcast guests that covered this topic and then come up with some ideas on how to repurpose it along this topic.
Great
So
idea.
there's just so many things that you can
Yeah.
do if you know how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
And if you don't know how to do it, somebody else does, and you can find them and they
Mhm.
can teach you.
And that's actually one of the things that we cover in the Gratitude Geek Lab. So if you haven't joined the Gratitude Geek Lab yet, now's your opportunity. It's about time to wrap up. Is there anything that we have not covered yet that you absolutely want to talk
Well, I'd love to share the fact that I have a mastermind,
about? Oh,
and people who want to learn how to become the owner of their business rather than the operator can come and find out some more about my boss mastermind. That stands for Business Owner Success Strategies. And it's a group of entrepreneurs where we're learning all my 6 principles and helping each business move forward in their path to becoming a true owner of their business. And if you want to find out some more about it, you can go to my website, ralwest.com. And if you want to talk to me, do ralwest.com/let's talk. And we'll set something up so that I can figure out what it is that you need, how I can help you.
and that link is in the show notes, y'all. You know what to do. It's down there. All right, Ral, this is your moment of gratitude. For whom or what are you most grateful?
Oh gosh, there are so many, but I'm so grateful for my entire life, all of my family, all of my friends, and the bountiful uh, world that I live in. It's amazing. I'm so fortunate.
Thanks for tuning in to Gratitude Geek, the podcast for Gen X women solopreneurs who weave gratitude into their business strategy. Our theme music is by Rev Brock and Soul Lily. I've been your host, Candice Rudarty. Stay groovy, my friends.
Stay groovy.